Welcome back to another episode of Cody's Corner. I apologize, it's been a little while. We've had some technical difficulties, but today I'm joined by Selectman John Selig. Jonathan, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Cody. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, please. So today we're going to go through and give you an annual review of our town meeting warrant like we've done the past few years. We've gotten some good feedback from our residents that it allows them to be a little bit more prepared prior to town meeting. So we have a total of 30 articles on the annual town meeting warrant this year. Town meeting is going to be held on May 12th, Monday, May 12th at 6:30 p.m. at the Halifax Elementary School. We'll begin check-in around 5:45, so we ask that you please get there early so you can get checked in and be seated, and that way we can get town meeting started promptly at 6:30 and hopefully get through these articles in one night and get everyone on their way.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I think it's like you think of it as the truest form of democracy. It's your chance to see how your town's run, see how your tax dollars are spent, and it really kind of gives you better insights to things. And I'm looking forward to it. It's a great time. We had historic numbers at our last special town meeting, so I'm hoping that that's a sign of things to come, that we'll have some good participation again this time around. And again, I agree with you, Cody. Don't wait till 6:30 to get there. Like with our special town meeting, we had quite a line. So check it out. If it's your first town meeting, don't be scared. You'll be okay. But yeah, it's a great time, and it's just a great example of our town coming together and hashing things out.
Absolutely, yeah. So in addition to this warrant review, we're doing a few other things this year, I think exciting for the community. We really have heard the feedback from the residents, and you want to be more prepared, you want to know more going into town meeting, which is excellent because I think a more educated town meeting representation allows for better results, particularly at the local level. So we will be doing a budget forum, 2 budget forums to discuss the annual operating budget. I'm sure if you have been involved in paying attention to any of the budget or finance committee meetings so far this year, we've had a tough financial year in Halifax, primarily driven by unprecedented increases at the school level, particularly at the Halifax Elementary School. We were initially faced with a request of over a 20% increase prior to last year, just something we've never seen before.
Historic.
So through teamwork, we've been able to bring together a budget utilizing some free cash that the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee requested to utilize. But we will be going into more depth into the budget, into that process at those 2 budget forums. The first one likely will have taken place prior to this being aired, but the second one will be on May 5th. At 6 p.m. at the Halifax Town Hall in the Great Hall. We will also have a Zoom option, so if you're not able to be there in person, you can hop on Zoom and we'll allow you to interact and ask questions and hopefully get some answers. We also included in the warrant this year are some zoning changes. And that's the culmination of the work of the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee, which has been in effect for, almost 10 years on and off. And Selectman Bruno really, that was a big push of his, was to get that done. So the Zoning Bylaw Review Committees met over the last 2 years and developed some updates to our zoning bylaws. And we will be having a forum on those as well, the dates to be determined, but that information will be posted on our website. And again, it'll be the same format, in person at the Great Hall, but also we will have a Zoom option so you can attend virtually.
No, I think in addition to putting this warrant together, I do think it's on us to try to get the education out there as well. Kudos to you, Cody. This is always a delicate balance where things are coming in late. We had our town budget pretty much wrapped up, about February, would you say?
Yeah, February.
Yeah, so kudos to you for getting it done so early. We did have to wait a little bit for the school budget, but that traditionally comes towards the end of the process. But again, it's that balance of trying to get everything in, but you also got to remember we're printing out. How many of these are we printing, Cody?
About 3,500 warrants.
Yeah, so we have to print it. We got to make sure it gets in the mail in time. We have to make sure it gets in your hands in time before the meeting so that you can go over it. And again, don't wait until 6:30 to get to the town meeting, and don't wait until the night of the town meeting to open your warrant. Start looking at that warrant when you get it. Start going through things. Write down some questions you may have, and try to get as educated as you can before that meeting, because the meeting will make a lot more sense and run as smoothly as it can if we have residents that have kind of, I don't want to say do their homework, but at least kind of check things out a little bit.
That's a great point. And to that point, if there's ever questions that come up, and you want to get an answer, you're more than welcome to ask a town meeting.
Yeah.
That's the point. But also, if you want to know ahead of time, feel free to reach out. Whether it's a question on a piece of equipment in our capital plan, whether it's a question on a bylaw change, you can reach out to my office. You can reach out to any of the applicable departments, and we'll be more than happy to hopefully answer those questions for you. But again, it just helps the town meeting process move along. Correct. But if there are questions, we'll be there to answer them at town meeting.
Yeah, you don't want to rush. You want to give things the time it needs. But if we can be as efficient as possible and get as many questions answered ahead of time as possible, I think it makes for a smoother town meeting. And knock on wood, hopefully a one evening town meeting. We'll see how it goes. But I hope we can do it in one night.
Good. All right.
Yeah.
You want to kick us off with Article 1?
All right, I will jump in. I am leading off here, so I will do Article 1. So Article 1 is to see if the town will vote to amend the wage and personnel bylaw as presented below. So essentially, there are three aspects to this. First is a 2% cost of living adjustment, or COLA as it's called, for all our non-union positions, and that's effective for the new fiscal year starting July 1st. The other one is to remove the veteran service officer from a stipend position to a grade 6 position. And then finally, we did do some streamlining of the current wage and personnel bylaw. Essentially, Cody just made it so that it's a little bit more efficient in that it used to be a gathering of the finance committee, the select board. It became kind of a process. So this kind of streamlines that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it makes the selectmen basically the new wage and personnel board now to kind of help things go through the pipeline, I guess, a little bit more effectively.
It does, yeah. It does exactly that. It also, it really turns, right now, our wage and personnel bylaw is, several pages, right?
Yeah.
50 plus pages.
Sure.
It simplifies that into a few pages here, which is in your warrant. And it puts a lot of the onus on the selectmen to act as the personnel board, but also a lot of it is policy-based, and to make sure that we can, operate as we need to, and if we need to make changes within the year, that we're able to make those changes. One of you touched upon the veteran services officer position, changing that from a stipend to a grade 6. That's primarily being driven by the state. So the state of Massachusetts has come out and said, in order to be a veteran services officer and help with claims, you have to work 20 hours a week. 20 hours, yeah. Which is great. And we have a veteran services officer who will be able to do that and provide great service to the community. But right now, the stipend does not pay for a 20-hour week position.
Correct.
Right? So this would allow us to pay it on an hourly basis, so we can make that that change. So things like that. Town meetings still will have to approve the compensation plan. So that'll still be an item that will have to go into it. As approved, it would go into this bylaw. But it really just helps to clean things up so we can clean up our personnel management and also prevent potential litigation issues.
And you hear a lot, Cody, about our bylaws. They're great, but they are a little antiquated at best. So again, this process is just trying to bring us into a little bit more of the current times, be more efficient, make sure we're not redundant, make sure we're not counter-claiming what we're saying in other parts of the bylaw. So just kind of a spruce up, which is always a good idea.
Yeah, excellent. And it also was a recommendation. We hired an independent consulting firm to do an audit through a grant. It didn't cost the town any money.
Attaboy.
And this was the recommendation of that group to replace our current bylaw with a bylaw along these lines that really is more policy driven.
Good, and easier to understand, I bet, with the people. So that's always great too.
Absolutely.
Good. All right, you want me to jump over to Article 2?
Yes, please.
All right, Article 2, to see if the town will vote pursuant to Chapter 41, Section 108 of the General Laws to determine the salaries of elected officials full-time here, several elected town officials for the next fiscal year. So you'll see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different positions. You have your moderator, your town clerk, your selectman, your treasurer collector, your assessors, and your highway surveyor. So you'll see when you get your warrant, there'll be the 3 past year's salaries, and then the projected salary for the coming 2025, 2026. Everything pretty much status quo here. Let me see here. Let me look through. Town clerk, she was misclassified before, so now we've set her up with a step 1 for her grade, which is good to correct that. The treasurer collector is just up to the next step. And then the highway surveyor is a 2% increase from the previous year. So nothing really jumps out at me anyway on these numbers. And it's just they're separate because they are elected. So we have to have that as a separate article in the town meeting.
Correct.
So,
That's correct.
yeah.
Very good. Article 3 is our operating budget, our annual operating budget. You may notice we are down one article this year, so historically our operating budget was always Article 4. Article 1 was to hear and act on the reports of town officials. Again, that was one of those articles that was antiquated, really was put in place prior to the requirement of a written annual report, right? So the town puts together a written annual report. So the Article 1 was no longer necessary. Council advised that we did not need it anymore, and so the Board of Selectmen did vote to remove that. So if you notice, hey, I thought Article 4
Article 4 is the budget every year,
Article
sure.
3 is the operating budget this year.
Yep. And it's the one that's sideways
Yes,
on your
so-
warrant. It's always the one where everybody takes their warrants and turns them sideways to go through.
Yes, good
So,
point.
yeah.
So again, we'll have some additional presentations on the operating budget. This was a difficult financial year. I think, going through the big points really are in the schools. So we are seeing a large increase in the Halifax Elementary School, over 10%. From fiscal 25 to fiscal 26. Our public safety category was actually level funded, so it was 0%
Yeah,
increase from
that's
last year to
terrific.
this year. So kudos to both Fire Chief Witham and Police Chief Shops for being able to do that, particularly in today's age where costs are continuing to skyrocket.
That's fabulous.
Our Silver Lake assessment did go up over 5%. That is primarily being driven by a requirement from the state. The state sets out a minimum requirement that we contribute, and Halifax's was increased this year. And Plimpton and Kingston had figures that were beneficial to them, so we anticipate them passing those figures, so we did have to accommodate the request from Silver Lake this year.
Yeah, because if 2 of the 3 towns approve it, the other town is on the hook to do it.
Exactly, yes.
And then, Cody, I don't want to interrupt you, but as it kind of goes here in the town meeting, the moderator will list all the line items, right? And if you have a question on one of the specific line items, you will ask for a hold on that item.
Correct.
And then that way, we know after we get through, let's say we're doing general government and you have a hold on one, he'll circle back to that hold just to kind of keep the process going, but still gives the residents time to get their questions answered and kind of move in an orderly fashion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The next real increase comes in our fixed costs. So our fixed costs are made up of our Plymouth County retirement assessment, which is mandatory. We also have our health insurance contribution for our employees, which again, we have to contribute that. We have our Medicare, we have insurance, so property liability insurance, workers' comp. Our OPEB trust, OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. It's an unfunded liability that we have. So all of these things really, like I said, they're fixed costs. We have little to no control over these, and we're seeing them increase at a large amount. So that really makes up primarily our increases, at the large level. But I'd recommend, if you really want to get a more in-depth understanding of the operating budget, to please tune into one of these sessions. All the information will be posted online. They'll be recorded. We'll also kick off town meeting Article 3 with a short presentation as well to hopefully answer some of these questions.
And that budget one you're doing in May, can folks log in on that? Is that a Zoom as well? That
It is,
They don't have to be there. So if you can't make it there yourself, just fire up the computer and you can watch at home.
So our total general operating budget for fiscal 26 as recommended is $31,085,184, and we will be using $745,000 of free cash, which is one-time funds.
Right.
So, again, not to alert the town or scare them, but, next year we do anticipate quite a large fiscal cliff, as those funds will not be available next year. So
And
it's something to make sure that our residents are aware of, that this is, the town really used a Band-Aid this year to get through, but it makes the wound quite a bit bigger next year.
And as a selectman, I struggled with this decision, Cody, because as you say, you're not really supposed to use one-time money for reoccurring budget items. And while it's not the best financial practice, I do feel like we get our ducks in a row a little bit this year, and we're essentially punting to next year. And to your point, that cut will be deeper next year. So as you say, you don't want to scare folks, but you just want people to know that there will be some very challenging times in 2027 financially.
Yeah.
And it's not just us, it's not just Halifax. You're seeing it in communities all across the state, so
That is true.
we'll get through it.
It's important to note too, the budget process this year did not go without reductions in services to
Correct.
the community. So the Halifax Elementary School is making significant reductions in their staffing and some of their services to the tune of several $700,000 from their initial request. And on the general government side of things, we are also making some reductions with the elimination of 3 positions and also some reductions in expense accounts. So,
Right.
like you said, next year will be more challenging, but we are getting through this year. But I think it's just important for the town to understand that there were some difficult decisions being made. And
Right.
this is kind of the best we can put forward.
Yeah, no, you don't want to lose people, but unfortunately, the harsh reality is the numbers are the numbers. So we'll work together and we'll get through it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Article 4. So Article 4 is adding a few different accounts to our revolving funds. So our bylaw section 23.3 subsection 5 actually lists all of our revolving accounts. Mass General Law requires that you have a bylaw that lists these in a town. So we are looking to add 3 new revolving accounts. The first one is Halifax Elementary School busing. It was not anticipated to be used in fiscal '26, but the school committee did request that we create the account. And this would ultimately be, if the school committee were in future years to require a fee for busing outside of the requirements, the state requirements, then this money would go into this account, and then it'll be utilized to fund the busing. The next one is for full-day kindergarten at Halifax Elementary School. This is very similar to the busing. This is not anticipated to be used in fiscal '26, but the school committee did request that we create the account, and you do have to have town meeting approval to create it. So this would be to fund full-day kindergarten. The fee would go into this account, and then we would pay for that cost out of this account. That's why it's revolving in and out. And the last is park maintenance. We had technically made this last year, but we needed to update the bylaw. And this is the proceeds from fines and fees for down at any of the parks, particularly down at the beach, Lincoln Street Beach, but it really is applicable to any of our parks. And that would be used to operate and maintain the parks in Halifax.
And to circle back on the school thing, I know you say they're not using either the busing or the full-day kindergarten this year, but it is good if 2027 is tough. We're probably going to consider all options, so at least have these there in place so that if it's an option that they want to pursue as a school committee, we're all set up and ready for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Article 5 is an annual article. This appropriates funds to our reserve fund. So we, as you all know, things are much more expensive, right, than they used to be.
Amen.
We historically put $75,000 aside as our reserve fund, basically extraordinary or unforeseen expenses. $75,000 just doesn't cut it anymore.
Doesn't do
right?
it.
If we have a large project or a couple of projects, we need a little bit more put aside. So we are requesting $100,000 this year to put aside into that account for our general fund, and then $50,000 for our water department reserve fund, which is in line with previous years.
Yep.
Article 6 sets the limits for our revolving funds. So this is an annual requirement, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2. This lists all of the revolving funds and basically sets how much can be spent, the maximum that can be spent out of those. You'll note that the new revolving funds of the busing and the kindergarten are not included on this list because we do not anticipate using them this year. Therefore, we're not approving any spending out of those accounts.
Correct.
This doesn't cost the town any money. There's no appropriation. This allows whatever money it goes in to be spent and puts a maximum on that.
Sure, and it, again, worth mentioning that it's for those specific purposes. It's not like you can use these funds for anything other than what's specified in town meeting.
Yes.
So, good.
Article 7?
7, okay, so I don't know if we want to lump 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 together. They're all similar articles. I guess we'll start with Article 7. It's to see if the town will vote to accept Bourne Drive as a public way or take any action relative thereto. So essentially what it is these 5 different streets, I'll go down the list. Bourne Drive, Christmas Tree Lane, Danson Lane, Heron Road, and Riders Way are not recognized streets for the town of Halifax. What that means is they were built for one reason or another. They haven't gone through the process of being recognized by the town. We want to get them recognized because technically the town is not supposed to service those roads. They're not supposed to plow those roads, sand those roads. But we have been doing the sanding and the plowing just because of safety measures. So what we want to do is get these roads officially recognized. What it also does too is it helps us out a little bit with the state with Chapter 90, which is our road funding money. We all want good roads in Halifax, so the more streets we have officially recognized, the more mileage on that formula, so that will help. So these 5 streets here, and I'm sure the residents will be very interested, are going forth to be recognized at town meeting in May.
Very good.
Yeah.
Article 12. So Article 12 is really a follow-up to the annual town meeting in 2023. So I'm sure many of you are aware that the Massachusetts Attorney General engaged in litigation, the opioid litigation with a lot of the big pharmaceutical companies, and they reached a settlement. And towns, as part of that settlement, were given opioid settlement funds.
Correct.
In 2023, the state law required that any money that we receive, unless there's a specific purpose in the law or something in our bylaws, ultimately has to go into our general fund. So it went into our general fund, and then we had to create a stabilization fund, which we did in the 2023 town meeting, and then we put the money that we received into that stabilization fund. It's a very long and difficult process for these opioid funds that didn't really make sense, and so the state finally said, okay, we need to change this.
Clean it up.
So the state now allows for us to have what's called a special revenue fund, and the money automatically goes into that now. So
Okay.
we can automatically account for it, and it's in that separate account.
Sure.
And then it can be spent for opioid-related purposes with approval of the Board of Selectmen. So the Board of Selectmen are the appropriating authority for it.
And that's the opioid education and approved state programs to help with the opioid crisis.
Correct, yeah. So anything, it has to be related to the opioid crisis. And so the idea is, since fiscal '24, all of our funds have gone into that special revenue account. But the funds in fiscal '23 did not because of that state law. So this moves the money we received in fiscal '23, which was closed out as free cash, into that
the new
special revenue
fund.
And it also rescinds the Articles 17, which was the creation of the stabilization fund, and 18, which was the money putting into the stabilization fund.
So we're getting that off the books.
As they're not necessary anymore.
Yep.
So really cleaning things up. This is, the residents won't see anything from this. As particularly with just the cleaning up of this, it's more of an accounting thing, but we really want to get it as clean as possible so we can start to look for good use of these opioid funds to benefit the community.
Let's get them going.
Article 13 is the funding of our FY26 capital plan. So as I mentioned, the town is using $745,000 of free cash in the that would typically be used for the capital plan this year. So the capital plan, as approved by the capital planning committee, was larger than you're seeing in the warrant. But the Board of Selectmen did vote to remove a new ambulance for $500,000, one of the police cruisers for $60,000, and $35,000 for the blacksmith shop repairs. And then we also had some leftover free cash that you were able to appropriate. So this year, there are several items, $689,000 coming from free cash and $500,000 coming from the water enterprise retained earnings. The first is a cyclical inspection. This is a requirement by the Department of Revenue. Basically it's technically every 9 years, we have to conduct basically an inspection of every property in town for assessing purposes. It's a reval year is what we call it. And we've done several of those, but we, in the mid-2000s, the town actually eliminated the position that went out and did this. So now we are looking to utilize a consultant, which again saves the town money because we're not paying benefits and an annual
Insurance
salary.
and stuff,
But now we need to bring in a consultant. So that's $94,000. The fire department is seeking some turnout gear and some rescue tools for one of its engines to replace old rescue tools that have somewhat become unreliable. $50,000 for the gear and $70,000 for the tools. The police department is in need of firearms replacement. Our firearms are 10 years old. The recommended schedule is replace them in 10 years. So that's for $15,000. That does include significant trade-in value from our existing firearms.
Okay.
And also one police vehicle this year for $60,000. So again, we've the past few years been doing two. As a result of only doing one, we did have to increase the expense budget for police maintenance. So if you see that in the operating budget this year, that would be why.
And just, Cody, not to derail you here, but that police vehicle, well, years and years ago, our FinCon came up with the idea that we were seeing issues with cruisers after a certain amount of time. So it's almost like when you own your own car, right? You get to that certain mileage, things start to go wrong. It just made more financial sense to turn those cruisers in after a set period and not have to deal with that stuff and get a decent trade-in for those cars. So that's why they've been doing that like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's $20,000 being requested for the library window replacement. So there were funds approved at a previous town meeting for the front window replacement of the library.
big window.
We did, these jobs require that we have an engineer come in and, prepare plans for us. Once we had those plans, we were able to get cost estimates, and unfortunately, the funds that we have are not going to be enough to cover that. So we are asking for an additional $20,000 to get that done. Annual road maintenance for $300,000 at the highway department. That's something we've been doing.
I know people like to see that.
They do.
Yeah.
And then a new item this year is stormwater management for $80,000. So as far as it's a requirement for our MS4 permitting, which is
Correct.
basically our permit from the EPA that allows us to discharge stormwater. And we need to install some different measures. So as part of that plan, we need to do 2 to 3 projects a year to increase basically our stormwater capabilities.
Show we're making progress.
Exactly. So about $80,000 is for capital projects, which you see in the capital plan, and then you'll see another $100,000 in the operating budget, which supplies consulting and street sweeping and things like that. And then the last one is the water treatment plant, $500,000 towards those upgrades. So the upgrades are almost complete. We have taken out some short-term borrowing for that. The good news is we've been able to pay that down significantly due to
Excellent.
some good financial policies we have in place and strong retained earnings from our water department.
Excellent.
So the plan would be to utilize this towards those upgrades and hopefully only have to borrow for the next year or two, which saves the town significant
A lot of
funds.
money. That's great.
If we borrow for a project and we go to what's called a long-term borrowing, it's a minimum of 10 years. And we can't just pay it off early and then,
Right. You're on the hook for
you're on
that.
the hook for those 10 years. So when we looked at this project, we said, okay, we've already allocated significant money. We also have used some of the ARPA funds for this. And we had about $1.5, $1.6 million that we needed to come up with. So rather than lock us in for 10 years at, potentially a 5% interest rate.
Yeah, you're paying a lot of interest.
We've been able to roll this over, and we're pretty confident we'll be able to get it done in 4 to 5 years.
Great.
Which effectively saves the town, 5 years of 5%
Of interest. Oh, that's
So,
great.
A good teamwork there by our financial team. Article 14. This is an amendment to our general bylaw, section 47, which is our town meeting bylaw. So 47.1, 47.14C, and 47.19. And I'll give you the reasoning behind this. So you touched upon the historic turnout at our special town meeting in
It was
December,
crazy.
which is great.
Yeah.
We want to see our residents engaged. We want to see them involved. And we hope that trend continues. What we learned was we knew we didn't have a huge space to get together in town. Our elementary school really is the only option.
Yep.
And what we saw, if you were at that town meeting, was we were pretty much at capacity. We
Oh,
fit everyone in.
we'll say at capacity for this recording. So yeah.
And it's important to note that that was a special town meeting with, nowhere near as many articles, right, as
Sure.
this. So in preparing for hopefully increased participation,
Yeah, I love it.
we anticipate if we have large crowds like that, we may need to move the meeting
Right.
to some place like the high school, right? Silver Lake High School, which has a large auditorium, and also the gymnasium, which between the two can fit, close to 2,000 people.
Yeah, it would be fine.
So right now, our bylaw does not allow for that. So effectively, we would allow for the Board of Selectmen, if they determine that it's needed, to hold town meeting at an outside location out of Halifax due to capacity requirements.
Yeah.
The next change in 47.14 is just an update. The position used to be called an executive administrator. It's now called a town administrator, so updating that language there. That's other than language, that doesn't
That's
change
it.
anything.
Sure. Household.
And 47.19, our bylaw says that town meeting will be governed by Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order is really a book on parliamentarian procedures rather than town meeting specific. And so if we have a question on how things should operate in a town meeting, or council has a question, we always turn to town meeting times. That's the book that governs
That's the
town meeting in
standard book.
Massachusetts.
Yep.
So it makes sense to put that in here. This was a request by the Board of Selectmen and voted on by the Selectmen. So
Yep.
those three changes, again, doesn't change much, but it really gives us the need to
Sure.
change location if needed, and also officially makes that our town meeting times, the book that governs town meeting.
And just to go back to 47-1, worst case scenario back in December was we had over 700 people, and if we weren't able to fit everyone, after people waited hours to get in, to have to tell people to go home and creates a whole issue. So it just makes sense to give us that flexibility if we feel like we need to use it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Article 15?
All right, 15. I call this the Troy Guerin article because Troy, our longtime selectman Troy Guerin has championed this one. It's to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $3,500 to be spent for the South Coastal Counties legal services. Includes free legal services to civil matters to elders, low-income families, and their children, including those from the town of Halifax. So just a great program to help those that might need it with some free legal services. So I think it's a great program, and it's been on this town meeting, warrant for long before I've been involved in town stuff. So
Yeah.
great to see it go.
Absolutely.
Article 16.
Article 16.
That is you.
Article 16 is prior year bills, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So if there are any bills that were not paid in the prior fiscal year, they actually have to go to the town meeting for approval, as the funds that we have in place do not cover prior year bills. So the motion at town meeting will have what those bills are. As of now, we are aware of only one bill from the elementary school, but again, that'll be part of the motion at town meeting.
And does that, Cody, take a certain vote or something? Not just a straight majority, but more of
It does.
than a majority vote?
I'm not going to give the number right now because I want to make sure I'm certain.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Percentages.
We have time.
But it does provide, it does require a higher percentage vote. I believe it's
just a majority.
4/5, but don't hold me to it. We'll
We'll
make sure we
figure
have
it
the
out.
answer prior to town meeting.
Okay, cool.
Article 17.
Article 17, again, a Troy Guerin article, to see if the town will vote and raise an appropriate transfer from available funds, a sum of $3,500. This is for South Shore Resource and Advocacy Center for Domestic Violence Intervention and Prevention. Again, a fantastic cause. We want to take care of all of our residents in Halifax, and this is a great opportunity to help people that might be in some trying times. So again, a fantastic thing to get behind, and I'm honored to present it. All right, Article 18. Let's see. This one is, this is the 4-H article. So this one is about $150, it says, for the County Cooperative Extension Services. It essentially makes Halifax eligible for programs like 4-H. And I do know a lot of kids love their agriculture. We are a farming town, so just makes sense. That's really short money, $150. So great to see it. Once again, it's like tradition every year. So great to see it being presented again.
Good.
Yeah. Article 19 is the litter article. So this one, basically, the Board of Selectmen was approached by our beautification committee looking for basically more ways to enforce littering, anti-littering in Halifax. So we've put together these bylaw kind of review here to kind of give the town a little bit more teeth, I guess, when it comes to littering, anti-littering enforcement. Kudos to our beautification committee. They are some really hardworking folks. I'm sure you see on the social media all the cleanups they do. We have one coming up at the beginning of May. So yeah, this was in response to beautification asking us to give them more power, to kind of tighten the strings with that, to increase some penalties. So basically, bottom line, don't litter in Halifax. Really don't litter in Halifax now because...
Don't litter at all.
Don't litter at all.
Don't particularly not now.
Not now. So if you're littering before, you're really going to be in trouble now. So just looking to help our beautification folks.
Great. Yeah, so this would create a new chapter in our bylaw,
Correct.
38. It really, it's already illegal to litter, right? So if you litter, the police can fine you. But this would create a separate violation, in addition to that, of $300 per violation
Yep.
for littering, enforceable by our police department and our health agent.
Just bring it home and throw it away.
Absolutely.
Right? Bring it home and throw it away.
Article 20 is changes to our zoning bylaw. So I mentioned this earlier with our zoning bylaw review committee. And, there are some changes of substance, which we'll get into. The planning board's having a public hearing on this Thursday, actually, which we'll provide a presentation on. But we also will, like I said, be doing a separate forum on these, date to be determined. But in addition to a few changes of substance, the biggest changes really are making it compliant with the law, right, with Mass General Law, and also making it so it's something that our residents can understand and read and understand. And so it's not conflicting with other parts of the bylaw. We had a pretty good bylaw in place, but the problem was it was very difficult to understand. We had zoning experts that still didn't really
Couldn't
understand
figure it out,
because
yeah.
it said one thing in one place, but then contradicted in
Contradicted
another.
itself, yeah.
So the idea was just cleaning it up, making it easier to read, alphabetizing things, making sure things were numbered correctly, in addition to a few changes of substance, which you've probably heard about this ADU, accessory dwelling units.
Correct.
So the state law changed. It was effective, I believe, in February, where ADUs are allowed by right in communities. You still have to meet setbacks and things of that nature, but we can't just restrict them anymore.
Right.
So we've updated our language to ultimately match the state law. We, in some areas, are allowing mixed-use development. So in commercial areas, for instance, and you're seeing this across the Commonwealth and really the country, the whole idea of commercial on the first floor, maybe some apartments on the
Sure.
Second floor.
Sure.
So allowing that in our commercial zone. And then we really went through and our site plan review section right now created very clear instructions on the site plan review process and different trigger points. So again, we'll get into more detail at those
Sure.
meetings, but those are really the changes of substance. And beyond that, it's just cleaning it up and making it easier for our residents and our business community to understand.
And that will be available at town meeting, Cody, correct?
It will, so
Yep.
it'll be posted on our website.
Sure.
As soon as the warrant is, it's actually already posted on our website under the planning board's public hearing page.
Okay.
It'll be posted with the warrant when the warrant is posted online, and also it'll be available at town meeting. We recognize that town meeting likes to have these things in the warrant, and it's a discussion we did have with the Board of Selectmen.
How many pages?
It was going to turn our warrant into well over 200 pages.
Yeah, that's-
And looking at the cost of that,
Yeah.
it would have cost us tens of thousands of dollars, potentially in the $50,000 range, to print all of those and mail them out to every single home
Sure.
in Halifax.
Sure.
So it made sense to, again, we'll have a link to that available on the website. Between now and town meeting, if you would like a printed copy, you can go into any town building, really, and request it, and we'll certainly print one for you and give it to you. And then we'll also have some available at town meeting. We're not going to print 500 copies at town meeting, but we will have some available at town meeting for residents to take a look at.
Awesome. All right, want me to jump over to 21?
Yes.
All right, Article 21, to see if the town will vote to adopt the proclamation below in regard to the town stance on MBTA zoning requirement or take any other action relative thereto. So, as we all know here in Halifax, we are currently actually fighting our MBTA compliance with the state. And we as a board and we as a community have spoken. As I mentioned, that meeting in December, I think it was about 700 to 7 to not be in compliance with the state. So what this is, what the Board of Selectmen decided to do is just basically summarize our thoughts as to why Halifax is not in compliance, why the board does not feel like this is the way to go. And whereas it doesn't have any legal real teeth to it, we just want to make it public and make it known that the town of Halifax is not for 3A zoning compliance with the MBTA. And we just wanted to make it known and to get it out there and to really express to everyone that Halifax is not in compliance and not planning on being in compliance with the MBTA 3A zoning.
I think this is important too. Some of what we've heard from the community is, well, we sent a clear message at our December special town meeting.
Yeah.
And we agree, but I think it's important, what we're hearing from the state in particular is, well, they voted down the zoning, right? Maybe if you bring something else forward, maybe it would change. So this makes it very clear that the town is not only against the zoning, right, but also against the act itself. And it's just a proclamation. Again, like I said, it really has no legal bearing.
Yeah.
But it sends a clear message to the state that from the town of Halifax as a whole in our
Sure.
town meeting. So that's really the differentiation here. Town meeting voted down the zoning overlay, which would have brought us into compliance. This sends a message that the town is against the law.
The actual law itself,
Right, not
correct.
just the zoning that was proposed.
Yep.
Article 22, so Articles 22 through 29 are petitioned articles by citizens. If there are questions you may have about these, it's in the warrant who it's being proposed by. And I'd recommend that you reach out to the petitioners, as they may be able to give you some information, as unfortunately they're not proposed by the town, so we don't have that information.
Sure.
The first one is proposed by Alan Diaz and 13 others, and it is to vote in accordance with Chapter 40, Section 15 of the Massachusetts General Laws to authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell lots 135 and 136 on map 20 on Vernon Street, which is off of Snow Street, to an abutter for a sum of money no less than $500 plus legal fees. And it being the opinion of the selectmen that no such land is required for public use anymore. So again, that's a petition article by Mr. Diaz and others. I believe you have 23.
I do have 23. 23 seems pretty straightforward, but again, it's a petitioned article. It's not presented by any town board or anything like that. It is to see if the town will vote to allow body art establishments, AKA tattoo studios, as a permitted use by right in the commercial zone. So it does just that, and it's proposed by Kimberly Shurge and 9 others. So again, pretty self-explanatory. Does the town of Halifax want to allow tattoo parlors and have them be okayed to be in our commercial zones?
Which is right now only allowed in our industrial zone.
Correct. So you'd have to go down to the industrial area for your tattoo. Now you could go down to downtown Halifax and get your tattoo if this goes through. Article 24, another petitioned article, this one proposed by Amy Troop and 18 others. The residents of Halifax are petitioning the town to perform a thorough audit of all departments, committees, assets, and liabilities, and to find any recommendations that will promote better financial and record-keeping processes to enhance the town's overall financial stability. It is crucial that residents trust their local leaders to allocate tax revenues wisely. Each household needs this to have longevity of household and property ownership. So there you go. Again, it's not the town's article, so we really can't speak to these. But I guess if you have questions, you can reach out to the folks that presented them. So that's Article 24.
Yeah, one thing to note about that is we do undergo an annual financial audit. So I think that's important for the residents to know that that is a requirement. We have to do that. All of our audits are posted online on our website. You can find management letters, you can find any recommendations, findings in our full audit. We also recently underwent an operational and financial audit by the Department of Revenue, which had several recommendations, hence the creation of the Government Study Committee, as many of those are systemic recommendations into the operations of our government. But I just wanted to make sure, reaffirm that we do.
This process is happening.
Yeah, this
anyway.
process does happen. If they're looking for something above and beyond that, I'd recommend you speak with Ms. Troop and understand exactly what she's looking for.
Sure.
But, we are bound by an annual audit, just like any other municipality in the state.
Sure.
And have significant oversight by the State Department of Revenue. And as far as the allocation of tax revenues, that's what town meeting does.
Right.
And so that's why it's important for you to be there at town meeting when you approve these.
Your voice is heard.
Budget.
Yeah.
That is you allocating our tax revenues, all of our revenues coming in.
Sure. All right, I'll jump to Article 25. This is proposed, again, another petitioned article proposed by Van Donnelly and 18 others. It's a little bit of a lengthy one, so bear with me here. Article 25, to see if the town of Halifax will vote for and approve an immediate impact study to be completed internally and led through our Finance Committee, or an independent study directed and controlled through the Finance Committee on the financial impact of the MBTA proposed rezoning law that was turned down by town voters and was further designated as an unfunded mandate by the state auditor. This article is to prepare all town costs to back up the state auditor finding as it applies to Halifax in the determination of an unfunded mandate. If the Attorney General holds grants from the town, we could sue with a comprehensive impact study in hand and a determination from the state auditor for Halifax. When the impact study is completed, the article directs the town officers to file a formal request for determination with the Mass State Auditor for local ruling on Halifax. And then it gives a little bit of a background here. So again, can't really get into too much here because it's not a town article, but it looks like these residents are asking for an impact study if the MBTA zoning was done here in Halifax, what impact it would have here on the town as far as schools, infrastructure, first responders, police and fire, all that stuff. So,
Sure.
yeah,
Very good.
yeah.
Article 26 is being proposed by Amy Troop and 19 others. The article starts with, it appears, some background information on, in the opinion of the proposed, and then goes forward to request a mandate against new building permits for new housing, condos, rentals, or apartments, and no more water services and trench permits are to be given out until town residents vote the mandate to be lifted. Article 27 is proposed by Amy Troop and 16 others to see if the town will vote to remove the town of Halifax from the Regional Board of Health in the SAFE Act and relinquish power from the CDC and all other non-elected officials and bureaucracy back to the elected Board of Health of the town of Halifax and their appointed Board of Health agent. So the town is part of a regional public health excellence grant. Halifax actually serves as the host community, along with the Bridgewaters, Middleborough, and Rainham. It's provided significant benefit to the town, where we've brought in about $400,000 a year through this grant. It does not require a change to any of our bylaws or local enforcement. It actually allows us to go above and beyond. So one of the things that's great about this is if a food inspection is required X amount of time a year, let's say twice, we have to do that. The town has to do that. That comes out of the town's operating budget. But if we wanted to do it 4 times a year, the grant actually will cover that increase inspections. There's also things like if our health agent is out of town, or God forbid had an emergency and was sick and needed to be out of the office, typically it would be on the town to find someone to compensate them to fill in. And that's if you can find someone. Where under this grant, it really creates a regional system where we can pull, whether it's an employee of the grant or it's an employee of another community's health department, to come in and help us in Halifax. So,
Sure.
And vice versa with the other communities. So certainly can be some more information at the town meeting by our health department. But as far as why this is being proposed, that's something Ms. Troop hopefully would be able to speak to if you have questions.
Awesome. All right, I will jump to Article 28, again proposed by Amy Troop and 15 others. The residents of Halifax would like to remove the town from the stretch code. And stretch code is a, I guess, quasi-building code, Cody, would you say?
Yeah, it is regarding energy.
Yeah, so
Adopted it.
energy requirements, as far as heating sources, as far as efficiencies.
Yeah, HERS rating, if you've heard of it.
Yep.
Homes have to get this HERS rating.
Yep.
So that's a requirement as part of it. The state has different criteria set out for each of those. It allows us to potentially be eligible for our Green Communities grant to be a green community, which we've historically brought in, around $200,000 a year for various projects in town that would have likely required capital for instead. So, but again, that's something Ms. Troop should be able to give her reasoning of why she would like to be removed from that. Article 29 is proposed by Amy Troop and 14 others, and this is to see if the town will vote that any changes to the zoning bylaws will require a 2/3 vote of town meeting and a referendum on the annual town election ballot. Also require that all zoning bylaw changes be made only at annual town meetings. There will not be any zoning bylaw changes or overlay change articles to be on a special town meeting warrant. So again, proposed by Amy Troop. She should be able to speak to the reasoning for that. The only thing that we can advise on is the legality of these articles. Our council has reviewed them and is working to review them. There are several of these that we do have some legal concerns as to their effectiveness, but we will make sure we have that information for you at town meeting, so you understand that if you vote for this, this is what it really means.
Sure.
Certainly not looking to sway the voters one way or
Either
another.
way,
We just
correct.
want to make sure that they have the information so they understand what it is they're actually voting for.
Great. All right, and then I bring it home with Article 30. So Article 30 essentially is, it's the last article of the meeting, and it always sets up our election. So Article 30 will set up to see if the town will vote to elect one Board of Assessor member, a Board of Health member, 2 constables, a Housing Authority member. I'll go through, do you want me to go through all of them, Cody? Sure. Board of Library Trustee, that's 2 of those. 1 Board of Library Trustee member for an unexpired term. 1 Board of Library Trustee for an unexpired term for 1 year. A Park Commissioner, a Planning Board member, a Halifax Elementary School Committee member, a Silver Lake Regional School Committee member, a Board of Selectmen member, and a Board of Water Commissioner member. So it essentially just sets up what our election is going to be the following Saturday, and that's Saturday, May 17th.
Correct.
So busy time of year. You have, earlier in the week, you have our town meeting, and then later that following weekend, you have our election. So it's an exciting time. It's, again, democracy in action. So that's always, again, traditionally the last article of town meeting where we set up the election for the following Saturday.
It is, from 10 to 6.
10 to 6, right.
Saturday the 17th.
Vote early, vote often.
Very good. So just as a reminder, town meeting will be held on Monday, May 12th, 6:30 PM at the Halifax Elementary School. We will look to utilize the gym first. If the gym fills up, we will be utilizing some other space in the school as additional space. We're basically a hybrid meeting where you'll
What we
we'll
did
Zoom
like
in.
the
Yeah,
special.
virtual option.
Yep.
So again, that's why it's important. Please get there early. 5:45, we're going to start check-in. Get checked in. We're going to look to start town meeting as close to 6:30 as possible. Warrants will be coming out in the mail in the next couple of weeks. You'll have them, review them. If you have any questions, please let us know. Attend these meetings that we're having, whether it's on the budget, whether it's on our zoning bylaw. The team really puts a lot of work in to make sure that all of your questions are answered. So please utilize these resources. And if you have any questions, please reach out to our office and we will do our best to answer them. But with that, we will call it a day here. And
Well, before, thank you to Finance Committee. Thank you to you, Cody. This is not something that's just thrown together. This is for 4 or 5 month process. So you've done a fantastic job. Our Finance Committee goes through, meets with all our department heads. They've done a fantastic job. So kudos to you guys for putting together a great warrant for town meeting. Appreciate your work.
Yeah, please, my pleasure.
Yeah.
And we will see everyone at town meeting. Thank you and have a great day.